Most people walk into a holiday celebration thinking they're making one isolated food choice. One plate, one weekend, no long-term consequence. But what the science actually shows is that holiday eating is doing something inside your body that extends far beyond the next morning. Some of these foods are quietly driving inflammation. Some are actively damaging your gut ecosystem. And a few, the ones nobody at the table is warning you about, are creating the internal conditions that favor disease over the long term. I'm Dr. Andersen, and on this channel we break down food as medicine so you can celebrate smarter. Let's get straight into it. The first thing to reframe is the idea that holiday eating is only about calories. It is not. Every meal you eat at a celebration is sending signals to your immune cells, to your gut bacteria, to your mitochondria, and to your inflammatory pathways. Those signals either activate your body's defense systems or suppress them. There is no truly neutral food, and during the holidays, most people are spending multiple weeks sending the suppression signals. Not because they're careless, but because nobody gave them a better roadmap. That is exactly what today is about. So what's the smartest foundational approach? You build your holiday plate intentionally around ingredients that actually work for your biology. Go to the market with a purpose. Reach for fresh vegetables, fruits, nuts, legumes, herbs, and healthy oils. These are not bland compromise foods. These are the exact ingredients that some of the longest-lived, lowest disease burden populations on Earth have centered their celebration meals around for centuries. The Mediterranean food culture is not just aesthetically pleasing, it is biologically validated. When the foundation of your holiday meal is built on these ingredients, the rest takes care of itself. Now here is one of the most powerful moves you can make, and it costs nothing except a bit of time. Cook everything yourself if you possibly can. Pre-made, batch-delivered food is easier. It saves hours. But here is what you are trading away when you outsource your meal to a factory: control. Commercial food processing frequently relies on chemical preservatives to extend shelf life. One of the most common is something called potassium sorbate. Research suggests that potassium sorbate can cause measurable damage to the gut microbiome. And your gut microbiome is not a trivial concern. It governs a significant portion of your immune function, your inflammation regulation, your serotonin production, and your long-term metabolic health. When you cook from scratch, you choose every single ingredient. You know exactly what is going into your body and into the bodies of everyone you are feeding. When you cook yourself, use extra virgin olive oil as your primary fat. Keep salt minimal. Eliminate artificial sweeteners entirely. And if you love to bake, and there is a lot of holiday baking, please avoid synthetic food colorings. The artificial dyes in those plastic squeeze bottles are not benign. Beyond the chemical concerns with certain synthetic dyes, those plastic squeeze bottles are physically shedding microplastics into your food. You can make beautiful festive food with real ingredients. The aesthetic is achievable without the chemical cost. Let us move to something that most people find genuinely difficult to hear, because it involves some of the most popular foods at any celebration: processed meats. The sausages, the smoked cuts, the deli slices, the hot dogs. They are everywhere because they are delicious and easy to serve. But here is what we know. The World Health Organization has classified processed meats as a Class 1 carcinogen. This is one of the highest evidence categories of cancer risk classification that exists. Studies have shown that consistent consumption of processed meats significantly raises the risk of digestive cancers, colon cancer in particular. The mechanism matters here. As processed meats pass through your digestive system, the nitrates, preservatives, and chemical compounds they carry actively disturb your gut microbiome and inflame the intestinal lining. A chronically inflamed gut lining is an environment where cellular abnormalities face far less biological resistance than they should. That is not fear-mongering. That is the documented biological pathway. The crowd-pleasing factor at the table does not change the science. So what goes on the table instead? Seafood is one of the most powerful substitutes you can make. The omega-3 fatty acids abundant in fish and shellfish are some of the most well-researched anti-inflammatory compounds in nutritional science. They dial down the inflammation fire throughout the cardiovascular system, the metabolic system, and the cellular environment. Chicken and turkey are strong alternatives. These lean proteins do not carry the same cancer risk classification, and they give you enormous nutritional flexibility on the plate. Plan your protein options around variety and around biology, not just around tradition. But now watch this, because which protein you choose is only half the equation. How you cook it is equally important. And this is the step that almost every holiday health guide completely skips. Deep frying creates what is called the Maillard reaction, the intense browning process responsible for that golden crust. One of the chemical byproducts of this reaction, particularly when oil is involved at high heat, is acrylamide, a compound that research suggests carries toxic effects on human tissue. Once a year, at a once-a-year celebration, your body has enough recovery capacity to handle it. But understanding the mechanism means you eat less when it is in front of you, and you never make it a weekly routine. Then there is grilling, and this one is personal for a lot of us, because grilling smells extraordinary. That smoke, that char, it is one of the great sensory experiences of outdoor celebrations. But here is the biological reality underneath that aroma. When the fats and proteins from meat drip into open flame, the heat transforms them into compounds called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons and heterocyclic amines. You do not need to memorize those names. What you need to understand is this: that smoke rising off the grill, the smoke you are standing directly in while you cook, is loaded with cancer risk compounds. And those same compounds are coating the surface of whatever you are grilling. You are inhaling them and eating them at the same time. Here is the genuinely fascinating part. You can neutralize a meaningful portion of those harmful compounds before they ever form, simply by marinating your protein first. Antioxidant-rich, fruit-based marinades, citrus, pineapple, pomegranate, cherry, papaya, contain bioactive compounds that interfere with the chemical pathway that generates the harmful byproducts. The antioxidants essentially intercept the reaction before it completes. You are not eliminating the risk entirely, but you are substantially reducing it with a step that takes minutes and makes the food taste even better. That is evidence-led risk reduction. That is exactly how we approach things on this channel. And just to say it clearly once, this is educational, not medical advice. We are evidence-led, and we manage risk. Now let us talk about what is in your glass, because this is where most holiday health strategies silently collapse. People work hard to eat well, and then quietly undo a significant portion of it through what they drink. There are 3 beverages that your biology genuinely welcomes: water, coffee, and tea. Everything else is either working against your defense systems or is neutral at best. Water is non-negotiable foundational biology. Your brain is predominantly composed of water. Every enzymatic reaction, every immune signal, every cellular energy transfer in your body requires adequate hydration. Even mild dehydration impairs cognitive function, elevates cortisol, and slows metabolic rate. At celebrations where alcohol and sugary drinks are being passed around constantly, keep choosing water throughout the day. It matters more than most people realize. Coffee comes next, and this one deserves considerably more scientific respect than it typically receives. Coffee contains a bioactive compound called chlorogenic acid. It is naturally present in the coffee bean and survives brewing intact. Its roles in the body include supporting circulation, reducing systemic inflammation, and, here's the part that should interest anyone paying attention to metabolism, activating brown fat. Brown fat is a specialized metabolic tissue. Unlike white fat, which simply stores energy, brown fat burns energy to generate heat. And one of its primary fuel sources? Visceral fat, the deep abdominal fat that accumulates around internal organs and is directly linked to metabolic disease, cardiovascular risk, and chronic inflammation. Chlorogenic acid triggers that fat-burning activation pathway. Your morning cup of coffee, before you even eat, may already be initiating a metabolic defense process that works in your favor. Here is the critical detail that determines whether you actually receive those benefits. If you add cow's milk to your coffee, cream, half and half, any dairy-based additive, the saturated fat in that dairy binds to the chlorogenic acid and blocks its absorption. The beneficial compound gets escorted out before it can reach your bloodstream. The fix is simple: plant-based milks. Almond, cashew, soy, none of these interfere with chlorogenic acid absorption. Black coffee is always the optimal delivery method, but if you need something in it, always go plant-based. What about tea? Does the dairy interference rule apply there as well? It does, and the reasons are the same. But tea earns its place in this conversation for a distinct set of reasons. Tea contains polyphenols called catechins. These compounds actively lower systemic inflammation, improve insulin sensitivity, which is your body's ability to process glucose efficiently rather than converting it to inflammatory body fat. And research suggests catechins can even activate stem cells, supporting the body's internal repair and regeneration capacity from the inside out. Whether you brew it hot, pour it over ice, or incorporate it into a cooking broth, the biological benefits remain. Just keep dairy fat and excess sugar out of it. And sugar deserves its own moment here, because the holiday sugar load is doing something inside your body at a hormonal level that most people are completely unaware of. Every time you flood your bloodstream with significant amounts of sugar, your pancreas responds with a surge of insulin. Chronically elevated insulin drives up a compound in your blood called IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1. In controlled normal amounts, IGF-1 is necessary and beneficial for tissue maintenance, but chronically high IGF-1 is a serious biological concern because research has linked elevated levels to creating internal hormonal conditions that favor certain cancer growth processes. This is endocrinology, not speculation. Excess sugar is not merely a weight issue. It is an internal environment management issue. Now, before we get to the full food list, one combination you need to know about, because it is both genuinely delicious and scientifically compelling. Dark chocolate paired with coffee, essentially a mocha. Dark chocolate at 85% cacao or higher is extraordinarily dense in polyphenols called proanthocyanidins, derived directly from the cacao plant. These bioactives protect DNA from oxidative damage, lower inflammation, and actively support metabolic function. The darker the chocolate, the higher the concentration of these protective compounds. Pair that with the chlorogenic acid in your coffee, and you have two independently powerful anti-inflammatory foods amplifying each other simultaneously. That is a holiday indulgence you can feel completely confident about. Now let us run through the standout foods that belong on your celebration table, the ones doing real biological work at the same time they are satisfying your guests. Cruciferous vegetables belong at the center of your spread. spinach, kale, broccoli sprouts, cauliflower, radicchio, green beans, red onion. These are dense with compounds that support your body's natural detoxification pathways. Broccoli sprouts in particular are rich in sulforaphane, a compound that research suggests can interfere with angiogenesis, the process by which tumors develop their own dedicated blood supply. No new blood supply lines, no sustained fuel for abnormal growth. These vegetables are not passive side dishes. They are active biological tools. Cranberries are vastly underestimated at the holiday table. Rich in antioxidant polyphenols and natural anti-inflammatory compounds, they belong at every winter celebration. Cook them fresh and use freshly squeezed orange juice to provide natural sweetness rather than refined cane sugar. You get real sweetness, added flavonoids from the citrus, and you eliminate the insulin spike entirely. That is a simple swap with a meaningful biological payoff. Extra virgin olive oil belongs in your kitchen and visibly on your table. It contains monounsaturated fatty acids, a meaningful amount of omega-3s, and a rich array of polyphenols, including oleocanthal, which has demonstrated natural anti-inflammatory activity at the cellular level. Research consistently associates regular extra virgin olive oil consumption with improved cardiovascular and cognitive outcomes. Serve it in a small dish for dipping alongside bread. 3 to 4 tablespoons daily is the amount that research repeatedly associates with measurable health benefit. Make it part of your celebration culture. Certain aged cheeses carry real value worth knowing. Hard cheeses, Gouda, Edam, Swiss, contain vitamin K2, which plays important roles in cardiovascular health and bone metabolism. Aged Parmesan and Camembert carry live beneficial bacterial cultures that actively contribute to a healthier gut microbiome. You do not need large quantities. A small portion of the right cheeses can support your gut ecosystem rather than burdening it. Dried fruits mixed with tree nuts, dried apricots, dried cranberries, walnuts, almonds, offer something that fresh fruit often cannot. The peel of dried fruit is concentrated and consumed whole, delivering bioactives like ursolic acid, which research suggests supports cellular regeneration and metabolic efficiency. When you eat dried fruit, you are consuming the peel in a way you almost never do with fresh fruit. Buy organic dried fruit wherever possible. Once the moisture is removed, you cannot wash residue off the concentrated skin. Herbs deserve far more attention than they receive as simple flavoring agents. Rosemary, basil, oregano, thyme, parsley, sage, all contain bioactive compounds including rosmarinic acid, carvacrol, and apigenin, with demonstrated anti-inflammatory, neuroprotective, and metabolism-supporting properties. Cook with them generously throughout your holiday meal. They make everything taste extraordinary, and they are doing measurable biological work at the cellular level at the same time. One final principle, and possibly the most undervalued of everything we have covered today: portion discipline. Research on satiety signaling shows clearly that eating slowly allows your gut hormones time to communicate with your brain as your stomach fills. When you eat quickly, that hormonal signal arrives too late. You have already overeaten before the message lands. Take a third less than your instinct suggests. Eat slowly and deliberately. Choose the vegetables and nutrient-dense foods first, before anything else reaches your plate. Never go back for a second serving, no matter how remarkable the food is. This is not deprivation. This is working with your biology rather than in opposition to it. And on alcohol, briefly and clearly. Alcohol is directly toxic to liver tissue, brain tissue, and heart muscle at elevated doses. The harm is dose-dependent. A glass of wine or a modest beer at a celebration is a completely different biochemical conversation from chronic or heavy overconsumption. Know your line and stay clearly on the right side of it. So here is where we leave you today, and I want this question to sit with you after this is over. If every food decision you make at a celebration is either activating or suppressing your body's biological defenses, what does your current holiday table actually say about where you are headed? Are you quietly feeding an inflammatory environment inside your body, meal by meal, holiday by holiday? Or are you building the cellular foundation for long-term resilience? That answer is entirely within your control, and it starts at the next celebration you attend. If this channel is giving you a new framework for thinking about food as medicine, hit subscribe and turn on notifications because we go deep on this consistently. Here's the warning before we close. In our next deep dive, we are examining a habit that millions of people perform every single morning, believing it is protecting their health. And the latest evidence suggests it may be actively working against the very biomarkers you are trying to defend. You are not going to want to miss that one.